Hello and welcome back to Dream Girl. I'm Sheen, your host, and today we're joined by Aliya Rajah, who is a personal and professional business coach specializing in self-confidence. How are you, Aliya?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on here. I'm really excited. How are you?
Good, thank you. We were just discussing the life of Dubai these days. So you've been here for 5 years.
5 years now, yeah. It's just flown by. Came here for 3 months and it's been 5 years. A typical Dubai story.
So how does that happen? Did you come on holiday? Did you come for like a little short trip?
Yeah, I just came to visit family.
Yeah.
Just came literally to see them for 3 months. This is when I quit my job, started working remotely. I was like, yeah, let me just work here remotely for a little bit. And then just ended up kind of getting comfortable, testing out what I do here, testing the market for what I do. And then I was like, wow, this is a good place to be. And then, one thing led to another.
Stayed.
Yeah.
So you have seen Dubai pre-COVID and then during COVID and then post-COVID. It must have changed massively, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's... Well, for one, I think being here during the pandemic was a great place to be. Yeah, for sure. Especially I look back, home and I'm like, no, this was a good place to be. But it's definitely gotten, a lot busier. There's a lot more happening now, a lot more people coming in, a lot more opportunities. I think just in every industry, you've just seen like a boom of people just coming in. But that's what I love about Dubai is like there's so much energy and ambition and people who want to come and make, do something, create something, start something. They come and everyone's full of ideas and they're like, let's do it. What can I make happen? Yeah,
I love this about Dubai. I feel like there's an abundance mindset here, which we've mentioned many times now on the podcast. But everyone is here trying to do something and everyone is doing something, which is incredible. But so you get to work with a lot of people as a coach. Tell us what is it being a coach? What does that mean?
What does it mean? Well, really it's providing a safe space, first of all, because, it's like how often do we actually take the time to have conversations or take the time to really figure out what's going on for me right now? Because we get so busy, as we were just talking now about busy life, busy, the hustle, going out, friends, social life, gym, like just constantly being on, autopilot. So just taking the time really and creating that space where people can talk to me and I'm like, what's going on for you right now? How are you really feeling about everything? Which areas of your life do you not feel very happy in right now? And then we delve into that. So for a lot of the time it's, I specialize in confidence. So I'm not feeling very confident in my career right now. I'm not feeling confident in myself. I'm not putting myself out there. I'm holding myself back. So we really explore that.
Right.
So it's like unraveling the layers and exploring that and then helping them to take action to move forward. And obviously as a coach, I hold them accountable along the way and help them to get to where they want to go. So that's really it, I guess, in a nutshell.
Okay. So it sounds a little bit like being someone's therapist as well, right? But in a more professional setting?
There's a bit of a difference. So therapy, there's a difference between coaching and therapy.
Yeah.
And so therapy often looks very much also into the past.
Right.
Whereas coaching is very much looking at where you are now and where you want to go.
Okay.
So I'm very clear and very transparent with all my clients. And I'm like, look, we're not going to delve necessarily into, what's been and the past and like looking into childhood, looking to, relationship with your parents. But a lot of them get therapy on the side and they find that really useful. But then for me, they're like, no, I want to move forward. And not everyone wants to, go into the past. Not everyone wants to delve into that. So for me, it's very much like, okay, this is where you are now. Let's move into the future and let's move, get things moving, forward.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the difference.
So how did you get into coaching? Talk to us about the journey.
Wow. Okay. So, I've always been interested in personal development, in psychology, just human behavior. But it wasn't, what I studied. So I studied biomedical science, and really the aim initially was to become a doctor, do post-grad medicine, of course. But then halfway through, that I was like, being surrounded by medics, I was like, this isn't for me. I don't want to do this. Yeah. So then changed path, went into public health, did my master's in public health, started my career there in London, and I worked my way up quickly, got to a senior position within my company age 24. It was like my dream job, literally. It's like, wow, this is what I worked hard for. But then that very cliche story of I just wasn't fulfilled. What really happened was, I remember just sitting in my office and thinking, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? Like, can I see myself here for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? And I was just like, no, I can't. I want to do something more. I want to make more of an impact. I want to do something that's more meaningful. And I think, the higher you climb, the less of an impact that you have, directly. So really it was just, I never thought about starting my own, business, getting into coaching. It was very much for myself. I just did some training. So I did life coaching training. I did NLP just to learn, just to build my skills, because I was really interested in it. And then whilst doing it, I was like, wow, oh my God, I could actually, go into this. And so whilst working full time, I started getting clients on the side. I was training on the side. And then it just really just picked up, and I could see the impact that I was having. And I was just like, I said to myself, you know what? I'm just going to go all in 6 months, for 6 months. Like, it built up to the point where I said, I need to just give this my all. And I was in a position where I could do so. So I was like, just give it my all. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. I'll just, go back to, get a job again. And then from then it just picked up, and I think it just evolved, and I just fell in love, and I just kept going. And I got to a position where I was like, this is all I want to do. Okay. Yeah.
So is this how you would advise other people to get started with coaching if they're interested? Get some kind of like training and then find clients and just see how it goes?
Well, I think first of all, if you want to get into it, first of all, I'd say you have to be passionate about it. It's got to be something that you really want to do, because I think some people kind of look at it and be like, wow, coaching seems cool, or, I like giving advice. I could be good at this, but it's not advice. It's not just like, this could make me a lot of money. There's a lot that goes into it. And I think unless you're passionate about it, you're probably going to maybe get bored of it, get sick of it, or, not follow through. So I think, go into it for the right reasons, because you want to make that difference. And then what I would say is really I did the training, and then I was just like, I want to learn as quickly as possible, like how to be good at this. And so I myself got a coach.
Right.
And that's what I would definitely say to people is, like, I don't think it makes sense to be a coach but not having had experience coaching yourself.
Of course, yeah.
And working with a coach, they help you to see your blind spots. They help you to set goals. They help you to push yourself out of your comfort zone. So if you're not having that on yourself, how are you going to help other people to see their blind spots and take that action? So what I would say is, yes, do the training. I think it's always a good idea to do something on the side. So rather than, go fully in, if you want to, fair enough, but it takes time to build up. So that's what worked for me, working full time, building it on the side, and then just kind of making that natural transition.
And who is your target audience for your coaches?
So I work with professionals and entrepreneurs.
Right.
So, they work across different fields, legal, medical, finance, real estate, tech, and they're very much, middle to senior level professionals. Right. So I work a lot with CEOs, CFOs, COOs, and they really just want to just build their confidence. So they want to, so for example, they've got a lot of speaking to do, speaking at conferences, speaking at panels, speaking to their team. But not even, that's one part of what I do. And then the other part is working with professionals who are very burnt out. Yeah. So, there's people in very, kind of high positions. They're doing amazing things professionally, but they feel like work-life balance is zero, They're just burnt out, tired, stressed, and they're not giving things to the other areas of their life. So I come in and I'm like, okay, let's look at your life as a whole. Which areas do you want to give, spend more time in? What do you need to cut out of your life? So it's really people so these are the two areas. So building confidence on one hand, and then having that work-life balance. That's why I say self-love on the other hand. So taking care of you, which can be very easy to forget, when you're very busy with your career.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting, because when you talk about entrepreneurs and being burnt out, and even professionals, right? Yeah. This is a problem that I've experienced myself, and I've seen around me a lot. But do you see like recurring issues with people who are entrepreneurs and usually professionals? Are there the same problems that come up, or do people have very different problems usually?
Usually on the whole, it's very similar. Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that comes up a lot for entrepreneurs and just people who are high achievers really is very much, placing self-worth on their achievements. Yeah. And just feeling like whatever they do, they're not good enough. There's this constant got to keep going. One day I'll be there. One day I'll be there. One day I'll be there. Now that obviously serves you to some extent, because that's what, gets you to be very ambitious, to work really hard, to go that extra mile. But then from a self-esteem perspective, from a self-love perspective, it's like you're never giving yourself credit. You're never feeling like, hey, I'm doing good. I've done good. So I really work with them and helping them to recognize, like, there's a lot of imposter syndrome as well. So a lot of people who are in high positions don't even recognize that they've done great things.
Yeah.
So it's really, again, like working inwards. So it's like, yes, like externally you're doing amazingly. Yeah. But like internally, how do you see yourself? And so working through that. So these are things that come up a lot, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, one thing that I've seen is that a lot of people, they climb the ladder professionally, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they now have all the tools that they need in order to operate at their best. So what would be your advice to someone who, let's say, have just been promoted and is now in charge of people? Like, how would you advise them to fit into this new role?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, even that alone is, you know, for example, people say, oh, confidence, that's just something you need, you know, early on in your career, you need to work on. But not necessarily, because as you progress, you know, it's a different challenge. So the reason we lack confidence is because, you know, we're out of our depth, you know, we're out of our comfort zone. There's a new challenge and we've got to step into that next version of ourselves. So in that situation, so for example, yes, you've, you know, done really well in one role, but now you've got to manage a team, for example. So I always think of it as alignment. So it's like, okay, externally now I'm at this new role. Who do I need to be now in order to be successful in this role?
Right.
So what are the skills I need to develop? So for example, leadership skills. Okay, so what does it take for me to be a good leader? And I think that's why having self-awareness is so important. And, you know, there's internal self-awareness, knowing ourselves, and then there's external self-awareness. Yeah. So we can't just be all like, well, I know myself. We've also got to know how other people see us. So that's why, for example, working with a coach or having mentors or just doing this inner work, taking time to figure yourself out will really, really help you to see, okay, what are my blind spots? How do I develop?
Yeah. Okay, now that you've mentioned this, what is the difference between having a mentor and having a coach?
So a mentor is usually someone who has been in your position before.
Right. Okay.
So they're probably in the field that you're in. They're probably more senior than you, and they're there to help you, to guide you, and often even advise you on what to do. So actually say, these are the steps you should take, this is what you should do. Whereas a coach is very much, it's a lot of, you know, questions. It's the way we see coaching, I see coaching, is you have all the answers. Yeah. And it's really just unraveling those layers for you to discover the answers yourself.
Okay.
So rather than saying this is what you need to do, and of course with my clients I will, you know, give them homework and give them action steps to take, but it's very much, you know, what is best for you, what do you feel you need, and then them coming up with the answers.
Right. Okay. So you just give them the tools to understand the answers that they have already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you do work a lot on self-confidence, right? And I feel like in today's time, this is something that comes up a lot. And even from my audience, this is something I get asked a lot of times. How do you become confident? Have you always been confident? And I mean, you're also a very confident person, obviously, but I don't know for you where it comes from. But for me, I always struggle to answer this question of how did you become confident?
Well, I mean, it's a journey. It's a process for one. Yeah. And, you know, yes, you know, I'm confident in some areas, but naturally, you know, as I said, there'll be times where I'm like, oh, you know, I'm out of my comfort zone. Oh my God, I'm scared. I feel, you know, fearful, and that's completely okay, right? So it's not like this final destination where we're like, I'm super confident now.
I'm there now. Yeah.
I'm there. But for me, and this is actually why I do what I do, and I'm super passionate about what I do, because when I was starting in my career, you know, my confidence, it wasn't very high. I didn't think I could achieve great things. I used to compare myself a lot to other people. I'd put myself down, and I just, you know, I didn't dream that big for myself, as in I never saw, oh, I could get to that position, I get to that level. But then I remember my managers at the time, I was actually lucky to have managers who really pushed me. They were actually mentors for me, and they were the ones that saw things in me that I couldn't see in myself at the time. So they were like, so for example, I'll give you an example. I was at Public Health England. I created this national forum, brought all these professionals together, and I was like, great, my job is done now. And then my manager was like, okay, so we need someone to chair it. I was like, yep, we do. Who's going to be that person? She's like, you are. I was like, no. She was like, yes, you are. I was like, no, please don't make me. So obviously, I did that. I was in that position. Probably did terribly initially, but then, you know, my confidence started to build and build. And so that's, for me, when I saw that, I was like, wow, it just takes someone else being able to help you see what you can't see, and giving you that push and saying you can do it, and it opens up doors. So for me, and I think it's just learning that, you see that over time, and your confidence doesn't just grow over time. Your confidence grows by doing things that constantly scare you. So for me, I've constantly done things that scare me because I know that on the other side of it, things happen, and I learn, and even if the things don't happen that I want to happen, I've grown, or I've overcome a fear, and I'm like, wow, this feels good. You almost get a buzz out of it as well. So for that, and I've seen the benefits of having confidence, and that's why, you know, my confidence has continued to grow. And of course I teach confidence, so I have to walk my walk and talk my talk, right? So again, that's another reason. No,
I agree. It's definitely a skill and a muscle that you can train, right, over time, and I don't think anyone is born confident or not confident. You just need to learn it over time. And I feel like even for myself, when I think about it, in moments where I have to give a talk or something in front of people, I probably project that I am confident, but on the inside I'm nervous. And it's all about, I feel like, faking it until you make it as well, because you need to believe in it, and then it will happen. But it's also just to say that not everybody who appears confident means they're confident all the time, which is exactly what you've said. But that's And just to add to that as well is, that's why with my coaching, I always talk about the experience as well, because so I do a lot of public speaking coaching and workshops, and one thing I say is that yes, you know, you do come across as okay, or finally you're able to present, you know, you come across okay, but if the experience, you know, leading up to that beforehand is, I'm nervous, I'm sweating, I can't do this, there's that overthinking, you know, that dread, then that's just a lot of energy. It's just a lot of, you know, you just going through all that unnecessary stress for no reason. What about if you could make the journey leading up to it smoother? And the experience of the talk a lot better, right? And that's where we start to work on the mindset as well. So it's also just the experience of, you know, a situation and life in general. Honestly, that's like a good tip for just life in general, right? I realized this as well just this morning, actually, thinking I have so many of these podcast recordings I need to get through, and, you know, I just want to make sure it's going well, and I have work on the side, and I need to get there, there's traffic, I can't get parking. But then I was like, at the same time, this is something I've really wanted to do for a long time. And if I'm not going to enjoy the journey and just be stressed about all these little things, then what's the point? So it's a change of mindset of, I'm getting to do this, so I love it. Obviously these little things get in the way, but we're just going to make the best out of it. I love that. It's like, you have to do it anyway. You're going to show up there anyway. You might as well like have a positive perspective about it and enjoy it. And you probably, and you seem great now. You look great. You probably have much better energy than if you came being like, oh, I gotta get this done. This is hectic. For sure. Exactly. But so you've mentioned you do public speaking training as well, and you do workshops, and you do these in person, if I've seen correctly, right? Do you enjoy doing that in person with a big group of people? I do. I love it. So I do one-on-one coaching, and then I also do group, and I've run workshops for many years now, and it's a different experience. So before public speaking, I was running a lot of confidence and self-love workshops. And actually the reason why I started running workshops is because people would, you know, come to me, obviously talk to me with certain challenges they were going through, and they felt quite alone. And so all these people were saying these things to me. They felt like they were the only ones going through them. And I was like, you know what, I'd love to bring a group of people together. Initially it was just women. I run mixed ones now. And just to create that space and be like, hey, listen, you feel so much more confident actually in meeting like-minded people, in having support, in feeling like you can share things with. So, and just having that buzz, and people coming, you know, leaving feeling so much more empowered. I love that. And then now with public speaking, just having that safe space, like to practice, to be silly, let your guard down, build confidence. I really enjoy the energy of both. I love that. And it's also like almost like you're building a community around this. Have you thought about just doing it into some sort of community that you keep growing and keep adding people to it? So actually during the pandemic, I did create a community. It was like an online community. It was a membership. It was called Women Who Flourish. I like that. There was so much like research on it, even to the name, like flourish. There's a lot of positive psychology behind the term flourish and what that means. And obviously I just love it. It's what we're doing as well, flourishing together. And I did that, and I think it was really great for that time during COVID, because obviously people were alone, they weren't going out, there was a community and all that. So I did that for a year,
And then initially the plan was to grow it, but then it kind of got to a point where life just started to kind of go back to normal here anyway.
Right.
You're doing a lot more in person.
Yeah.
And then I'll be really honest with you, I kind of got tired of the whole Zoom thing. And I'm really honest, I got Zoom fatigue.
I'm sure.
So I was like, I just want to go back into doing in person. And now so it's a mix of both.
Okay. Yeah. I agree. I think because I've also been exploring ways of building a community, especially of women, like-minded women. And I mean, you've been in Dubai for a while as well. I don't know if you've had this experience, but it's really hard to meet professional women who are not in your industry or who are not people who you meet as part of your job. It's quite hard to meet them. And I've been quite lucky in the sense that because I've had such different jobs and I am also online, it meant that I met a lot more people, and it makes your complete experience very, very different of the place, and professionally opportunities and all of that is all completely different. So I was looking into finding a way to create a community, and it's the same as you. The first thing that comes up is do an online community, and I was like, I don't want that. It's just, I don't see what I get from an online community, because nobody gets to interact with each other, and face to face is so much nicer, right? I mean, we've been friends online, but nothing happens until you meet in person. Definitely. So that's why I wanted to like pick your brain on this, because you've had the experience of doing both. But what advice do you have in terms of if someone was to start a community here, what is the best way to approach this?
I would say speak to people and find out what they want.
Right.
So I really believe in co-creation, and I've done that with like all the online, all the courses I've created, with the workshops that I've created, the group programs, everything. It's all like, what do you want? And how can I help you? How can I be best? So, I would say that. So, when you do meet women now, just speak to them and be like, hey, listen, I'm just thinking of, creating a community. What would you like? If I was to bring a group of women together, what do you feel that, would help you? And let them tell you. Right. Because that's great, because you're getting all these ideas, and also by them sharing, they're more invested, and they're probably more likely to actually sign up and join you when they do. And then you can ask them loads of questions. So like, okay, so how often would you want to meet? Where would you want to meet? What would you like to do together? Which areas should we focus on? So just get input from lots of people, and then, co-create it that way. That's what I would say.
Oh yeah, that's a very good idea. Thank you. And, you've worked with a lot of women over time. And so we were discussing this earlier. It's like, do you see a change when it comes to women in the workplace and the gender gap? Do you see it happening? Do you see a lot more women getting to the higher executive levels where they now need help? Or do you think the problem is still the same?
I think in terms of, so I've been doing this for 6 years now, and I think obviously there's still a long way to go in terms of women like putting themselves out there, and even just applying for positions. So, for example, you might have seen the research when it comes to applying for a job. So the HP study where, when it comes to applying for a job, 100%, men will apply when they meet 60% of the criteria, and women will apply when they meet 100%.
Yep, we were discussing just that.
So exactly. So it's not that women are any less competent at all. It's really about confidence and this decision to say, I am good enough. I can go for this job. Why not me? Why can't I? And so, especially in the UAE, there's so much now for women, women in leadership positions, and a great push for that, which is incredible. And so a lot of the women I work with are in very senior positions, which is amazing. And I think there is more support that I'm seeing as well. So within the workplaces, like, in terms of, it's not much yet, but still it's kind of improving, whereas like women mentorships and like providing opportunities. So I think there is a small shift from what I can see for sure. But I think this is where the internal shift needs to come in terms of building that self-confidence and saying, why can't that be me? And you mentioned women mentors, and I feel like in my career, there have been managers who have been female who have really played pivotal roles for me in terms of even either getting promotions or just even switching careers entirely. Do you in your experience, or do you agree with this, that having female mentors really help? So for me, when I first started my journey, this is again as an entrepreneur, so this isn't in the workplace. Actually, when I was in my career, it was just females that had managers. But then when I got into coaching, a lot of the coaches I knew of were men.
Yeah.
So I started working with, you know, men as my coaches, as my mentors. And it was great. You know, it was very much, like, you know, goal driven and, you know, very much hustle and work and work and work. And I think I needed it at the time of my career and starting out. But then as I transitioned, I started working with a female mentor and more female mentors actually. And it was very different. And what I learned was, you know, I was very much working in the masculine way initially when I started. And then working with a female, you know, mentor, it was very much about how to work in a more feminine way and using feminine energy as part of your business. So bringing in, yes, you need to have like the goals, you know, the drive, you know, be very target driven, focused, but then also bringing in like the intuition, bringing in flow, bringing in self-care and rest, empathy, which I didn't used to do, empathy. Because, so all of these things, you know, nurturing support, especially women supporting each other. And so I was like, wow. And just working a lot more in flow, which I think was really great, because obviously a lot of the industries now, all the workplaces we see, it's very kind of a masculine way of working.
It is.
And I also learned that as women, you know, obviously, well, I said I learned it, but I delved into the fact that, you know, physiologically we're not the same, obviously, as men. And so if we learn to work more with our bodies, in tune to like taking care of ourselves, we can still be very successful.
Exactly.
So for me, it was really nice working with women who just understand what it's like being a woman. And I think even as a coach, you know, my clients, they've worked with men and then they come to me and they're like, you just get it, you know, you just get it. And it just feels more kind of warm and just more supported. And that's it. And I can share my experiences as a woman. So I think as a woman, just it's important to have female mentors.
No, definitely, because it's more relatable as well. So it makes it easier to share and just learn from as well, I guess. But, oh gosh, I forgot what I was about to ask you.
It's fine.
Oh yeah, so throughout your career so far, has there been any major setback that happened professionally, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, especially in this journey, I think there's been hundreds of setbacks. You know, I look back and I'm like, wow, there's been a lot. So I think the one that sticks to my mind, the one that comes to my mind, I mean, is literally when the pandemic happened, it first started. And so I was actually living in Abu Dhabi initially, and then I moved to Dubai. And looking back now, it's funny because there wasn't that virtual world as much, especially here. So I was very much actually still going to Abu Dhabi a few times a week, seeing my clients in person.
Oh, wow.
I know. Back now, and I'm like, God. Because I had, you know, long-term clients and great relationships with them. And again, jumping on Zoom, it just wasn't a thing then. So I used to do that. And then what happened was the pandemic hit. And I think because of obviously people weren't working in the same way, they weren't going to the office, they weren't having a variety of things in their lives anymore. They were just like, can we just pause on the coaching? And I remember just one by one, each of my clients that I was working with just like dropped off one by one by one by one. It was like, let's just pause, let's just go. And I was like, oh yeah, just, and then we thought COVID would be like a month thing, right? Oh, okay, let's resume in a month. But then of course, you know, it just continued.
3 years later.
So at that point, I remember just hitting rock bottom. I was like, oh my gosh, like I have no clients. This is my only way of working. Obviously, I couldn't run workshops anymore. I had to cancel my workshops as well. And then it was hitting rock bottom that I was like, okay, I really need to like pivot now. I really need to like figure out how to work in this new world or whatever's going on. And that's when I, completely just pivoted online. And then I just started creating so much more content. So I was doing videos through COVID, during lockdown. I was on video all the time, doing lives, doing videos. I would do these like kind of meetups online where women would just come and hang out, to be honest. Like bring your tea, let's chat, doing workshops. And that's when I created the membership. That's when I created the membership. So it was just in that time, I remember just being really low and being like, everything has just completely fallen apart. But then just thinking, okay, how can I pivot and just completely turning it around? And I think it actually really went in my benefit because obviously we kind of moved to virtual. So that was great. Didn't have to do the drives anymore. But I targeted women way more, obviously globally as well. I had in my membership, the women from all over the world. And yeah, just having more of a reach and just being able to have that impact during that difficult time and being that kind of positive kind of support during that time.
Yeah.
So, but I think setbacks are a huge, like, they're inevitable.
Yes.
And I think on this journey, you kind of realize that. So now if I have a setback, obviously it sucks. I have a cry a lot of the time. I'm like, I'll have my little cry, have my little moment. But then it's like, okay, just got to figure this out. And because of course you'll have conversations, you think things are going to materialize and then they just don't, or there's a delay, or people have changed their minds, or, you know, it's obviously it's frustrating. But then, you know, if you let all of these setbacks get to you, you're going to be like this.
Exactly.
You know, it's going to be like an emotional roller coaster, and obviously you can't be living your life that way. It's going to affect the other areas as well. So it's just like embracing, like you'll have highs, you'll have great things, you'll have successes, but then you'll also have setbacks as well. And I think from what I see in my work is that so many people don't want to take action because of the fear of setbacks.
Right.
They're paralyzed by, what if I fail? What if I mess up? What if it doesn't go my way? And it's like, if you can embrace that, you become just so like powerful, and you have so much power, because you're like, okay, if it doesn't go well, I will figure it out.
Yeah.
You know? So I think it's just that's where confidence comes in. First, having the confidence to push through if there's going to be a setback, and secondly, the confidence of knowing, even if it doesn't go my way, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think there's always two things with a setback. It's knowing, you know, what is within your control. So, okay, I've got a setback. How can I like turn this around? And secondly, knowing what isn't within your control. So if you can't do anything about the situation, like just move on. So.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like being adaptable, especially, is something that we all need to learn, because plans just don't go as you wish many times, right? And I feel like COVID, for instance, nobody expected this to happen, and look at us 3 years later. I think now they finally said that COVID pandemic was over. Like 4 years later, right? And as you said, we all thought, this is 1 month max, and then we're back to normal. But even now, I don't know about you, but when you think about the COVID times, it feels unreal, right? That the whole world was shut down. We were all in our houses for so long, and now we're back to normal. But it's crazy that these things happen, and you need to be adaptable. And I think that's the best way to explain this, because even for me, whenever setbacks have happened, and I try, you know, it's easier said than done, but you always think of it as it's just steering you towards a better thing. So this was not the right thing for you, so just think of it as we'll see now what happens. And I don't know, it's just adaptability, I think, is a huge thing.
And that's why, you know, when you said about even pivoting and asking yourself, is this the right thing for me? And that's why I think being on this journey of knowing yourself and always tuning inwards is really, really important. Because like you said, you know, we could be very much focused on just the externals. I want to do this. And sometimes things don't work out. They just don't. And you can keep pushing and, you know, really pushing yourself to something that isn't working. Of course, we need to try and not give up and have that resilience. Yes. It's also having that balance as well of being like tuning in and being like, wait, what's going on? Actually, I like to do this myself. I zoom out and look at the big picture, and I'm like, what is really going on here? Because I've actually found on my journey that sometimes things haven't worked out and I actually didn't really want them. So I was like,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's happened a few times where I thought I wanted something and then it didn't really materialize. And then I realized, I was like, okay, for me, if I really want something, I'll go all in. Whereas if I don't really want something, I'm kind of like, okay, let's go. And then it just kind of fizzles out. So it's tuning in with yourself and being like, do I really want this? And if something hasn't worked out, is okay, so where is this, what's right for me instead? Or, you know, what other path should I take? Or what can I explore? So just having those conversations, you know, dialing down the noise and kind of going inwards.
And, you know, I feel like what you're also talking about is just finding kind of like your true self, and like being able to decide what is the one thing that you want to do, especially when it comes to professional life, right? What is the one true calling for you? And I feel like you figured that out, because you were obviously in a very different path, and then you changed and became a coach, and you're clearly flourishing here. Right? So what advice do you have for people who are trying to figure this out? Like what is their true calling?
So I'd say, and again, I think I just want people to realize as well, it's not this, because I think there can be a lot of pressure to really find it and just have this light bulb moment almost of, oh, what is my passion? What is my calling? What do I need to do? But I think it's really about just thinking, what do I like doing?
Yeah.
What do I enjoy for one, and what comes naturally, to me? And the question I often ask is, if you could do anything and money wasn't an issue, so you knew that you're going to be paid well and you were going to be successful. If you knew you could do anything and be successful at it, what would you do? And then usually that kind of gets some thinking going. People are like, this. So what's the first answer that comes to your mind? So just those things of what do you want to do? And I think if you work hard enough and really put in the effort, the energy, you can do really well. So it's just believing in yourself. So I think, and I think just thinking about what are your strengths? What are you good at? How can you do more of that? I think owning the fact that you're not going to be good at loads of things, and that's okay, right? But what are you really good at, and how can you do more of that? So these are the questions to start thinking about.
No, that's a very good question, especially the point about if money was not a thing. What would you do? And I think for me, that's probably how I figured out, consulting is not for me. Because I would have stayed otherwise if money was the thing.
And I think as well, another thing, and it was so brave of you to leave consulting, because again, you're doing so well, and like you said, money, obviously great situation. And to make that change, it's a big move. It's a bold move. And I think obviously it's so difficult to be in that position, because especially when you're on a path in life and you're like, no, this is what I studied for. This is what my career is. This is what I should be doing. How can I then just leave?
How do I leave?
And I had one client, and she'd spent 10 years in the editorial field, and she came to me at this crossroads, and she was just like, I want to do something, but I'm not sure. I don't, and just kind of faced blocks in her area, and was like, what do I want to do? And we went through these questions, and the light bulb moment that came to her was just like, I'd love to get into wellness. I'd love to teach yoga. And then she was like, wow, I've never said that out loud before. I've never really, admitted that and said that. This is what I want to do. And then I think what we also had to work through is like just being able to be okay with her making that decision. Especially when you've spent 10 years in a field. And then to have to, because that's almost, it can become your identity.
And there's societal pressure as well now. There's status associated with these things.
Of course. And then suddenly you're going to something so different. And also the guilt of, how can I? This is how I started my career. This is what I'm doing so well in it. I've given so many years, invested so much. How can I just leave? So it's all that comes with it. And so, but then she did. And again, just on the side, she started to do her training, getting into it. And then now, she's doing amazing. She's teaching,
she's done the
studios around Dubai, and she's just loving it and doing more and more training. And it's just amazing to see. But what came up for her was, what she said was, I owe it to myself. She was like, I owe it to myself to at least try. And that's the thing. I think if you put all this pressure on yourself to be really successful, to do amazing, and then it's hard along the way, or you realize, I can't with everything else that's going on in my life. Just accepting, at least I tried. But it'd be such a shame. And I always ask the question of, do you think you'd regret not even trying? Do you think you'd regret not taking the step? And if you say yes, then you owe it to yourself. You just have to.
And I think you're so right, because this is one thing we don't think about is you will regret not trying, but you will never regret trying. Even if it doesn't work out, it always leads to something else. Even for me, every time I've done a little pivot, and if it doesn't work out, it's led to something else. And you learn something from this, even if it doesn't work out. So there's never really a regret of trying something if you felt like this was something important to you. So
100%. The fear of not even trying would be just so much worse. Because you have, it's inside of you. And you're not allowing that part of you to come out and to even try it and to tap into that part. So,
and you don't even know then, because you don't know if it would have worked or not. But at least when you've tried it, now you know.
Exactly. You can close that door, put it to bed, close it,
close
the box.
One thing that's come to mind is, you are basically a solopreneur, right? Or do you have a team?
I work with freelancers and outsourcing, but it's mainly myself. Yeah.
So what does the day of a solopreneur look like? I know no 2 days probably look alike, but
yeah, exactly. It's different day to day. So yeah, to give an overview, so I wake up in the morning, have my whole morning routine, which I think is so important.
Are you a morning person?
I am a morning person. Okay. Yeah, a morning person, but also like staying up late as well. So I'm like both.
So no sleep person.
Yeah. No, I always have to get my 7 hours for sure, always. So yeah, wake up, and I think that's something I learned early on as well. Is that right? If this has to be a lifestyle. This is something you can't just wake up, get straight into work. Oh, you're going to be frazzled. Also, the line of work that I do, it requires me to be present, to be speaking to people. So I think if you're stressed and frazzled,
you can't bring your own things, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, wake up today. Just to give an example, I'll share my day today. So woke up today, have my morning routine, work out all of that, and then did my admin in the morning. So, did my emails, check in, all of that. I had a call, and then came obviously to meet you, do this podcast. After the session now, going to do a bit more admin and things I need to do. Then have a session, it's a public speaking session, and then another session after that. And then going to do some social media stuff and wrap up for the day. So it usually consists of sessions, obviously calls, planning for workshops, obviously business development, networking. I do quite a lot of networking as well, meeting people, whether that's going to networking events or going for coffees, so just part of groups. So it's, quite a bit of a mix.
So very social.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's really cool. But looking back at your journey now, is there anything you would have changed in the way you did things?
I think what I've started to do a lot more in the last, I'd say maybe year and a half, is go to networking events and be part of networking groups. I'd say it would have been better maybe if I started that even earlier in my career, for sure. Because there's so much power in networking, in meeting people, in building relationships. I think one thing I've done a lot of is build relationships and nurture relationships, more so with my clients, people who come to my events. And I have long-term relationships there. But I think more so in terms of business relationships, where obviously you support each other, you refer clients to each other, you learn from each other, you grow, you attend events together. I think that is just super important. And I've seen the benefits of that. And I'd say probably starting that earlier on and being confident enough to do that earlier on would have been really good. Yeah. Beneficial. Yeah.
No, that sounds real treat. But do you do social media? Is social media a big part of the business as well or not?
Not usually. I mean, when I say social media, I mean obviously posting videos or
but do you
LinkedIn.
Create content for social media?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
just
how's
film
that
my
going?
own videos.
Yeah.
I think good. So I mean, sometimes I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I call myself out and say I should have done more. I've been doing videos now since I think 2016. I used to do a lot more back then. Yeah, okay. I remember my first video. I was sitting there all nervous, shaking. I used to do a lot of lives. But yeah, so I'm not as frequent, as I used to in the past, but it's fine. I think I probably do like a couple of videos a week or something like that. So yeah, I find it fine.
Yeah, because given that you coach and you have all of this, wonderful content about tips, about self-confidence and things like that, social media would love that. Yeah. So you should definitely do a lot of this.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also just finding the right people as well. Like if you are going to outsource it, so just to put it out there. I mean, I have like hired people in the past for social media, just wasn't the right fit. And I think, what I do, everything I write is from the heart. Everything I share is from the heart. And so, it's all about what I say and connecting with people. And so I don't think it's something that you can like give to other people to write for you. Even the emails that I write, it's just from me. So yes, it's something that you can give to someone and write, and of course that's great, works for people, but for me, I've just decided I want to do it myself.
Yeah,
I still do.
Definitely the writing, I think you should keep doing, but can you get someone to help you with the edits and things like that?
So when I had my podcast, I have a podcast as well, I have people doing my editing for me there, and things like that. But yeah, for sure, that's why I use freelancers to help me, with other things.
It's always good to
definitely
outsource the bottlenecks, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I guess on like a final parting message, like, do you have any advice for women who are trying to break into the field that you're in, or just generally women who are trying to, you know, move into unconventional paths like you did?
So I'd say have a vision for yourself, like know what that is. So just think about you in the future. What ideally would you love to create for yourself? What would you love to make happen? First of all, to visualize it. You know, you've got to arrive there mentally before arriving there physically, and allow yourself to dream big. That's the other thing. Don't hold back. So dream as big as you want to dream. As you know, it's in your mind. You can think about whatever you want to, and then really hold on to that, because you know, obviously it's going to be tough along the way.
Yeah.
You're going to get knocked down. You're going to think, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. But it's about having that vision so strong that you're like, no, this is what I want. This is, you know, this is what I'm working towards. And just being bold, like not being afraid to make mistakes, not being afraid to take those steps. So that's why, you know, and confidence comes from, you know, doing. So it's not about, hey, next month I'll be confident. And because unfortunately, I mean, I'm sure you've seen, now it's about visibility. You know, if you're visible, if you're seen, you're heard, it's going to do you a lot of favors. It's going to help you to fast track, I think, than just sitting being the hardest working person in the room. So be out there, have conversations, make yourself heard, make yourself seen. I'd say really, really important things. And ask for help, you know, get support. Don't feel like you need to do it all alone. So think about, what are my resources? That could be people, it could be courses, it could be training, learning, mentors, and ask for help and get the help to help you along the way. So on one, yes, you know, think about how you need to thrive in your professional field, but then alongside that, how do you need to develop as a person? Which characteristics do you need to build? So like your confidence, your leadership skills, communication skills. Build them before you need them. Don't get to the point where you're like, oh no, now I need to work on this. I'm not ready. Just do it alongside, and then opportunities will keep coming to you.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. And where can people find you?
So they can find me on Instagram, coach_Aliya. Connect on LinkedIn as well. Drop me an email.
Yeah, and I'll put all the things in the description box as well. Well, thank you, Aliya. This was a wonderful chat.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you for having me on here.
Me too. And hopefully we'll get more ways to work together in the future.
Definitely. I'd love to.
Thank you.